Hi. All right. This is going to be kind of a long video. I have some things to share with y'all. So, one one thing that has come up in a lot of the um okay, for example, some people talk about like the earth is flat. I don't think the earth is flat personally. What I do think though is that there is some misinterpretation of the map, okay? Let's see here if I can. So there's several things here. One is that's kind of a picture of the Grand Canyon, okay? Um my theory is that the Grand Canyon is evidence of one of the catastrophes that we created many, many eons ago. Now, okay, so behind me so that I can keep it. All right, so here's us in the United States. This is South America. This is did I have that right? This is like let me look. Like Greenland, okay? This is Greenland. Then we have Africa, and then we have China and Australia. Now, this is how most of our maps are shown to us. And I'll be honest, my idea is that if I'm coming from here, this part of the United States actually would be over here, the west coast of the United States, that I have to fly all the way up over the top of the planet to come to China. Okay, now if this is in a circle, and we've seen this, where technically, and everybody made fun of Sarah Palin because she was like, we can see Russia from our backyard. However, you know, she's not, it's not that they could see Russia from her backyard, possibly. Maybe they could. But really, Russia is only 50 miles of ocean between each other, right? But we are given the impression that Russia is way over here. But actually, this is us right here on this part of the world, right? This would be the West Coast. And so then Hawaii, which to us is shown right here, okay? Right here is actually also right there. This is where the Polynesian Islands come in, right? And the link to Australia and how the Aboriginals are so dark there, okay? If you think about it, this part of the world is actually right here. Right here. Okay, another thing is they say all the other continents can fit inside of Africa. Well, look how small Africa is made to look. If that's true, then Africa is much bigger, right? Much bigger, and closer to Australia than it looks. Madagascar would be much closer to Australia, which would make us closer to Hawaii, which is make us closer to the United States, which they make it look like it's way over here, but it's not. It's right there. So if we put this in a circle, then there would be Hawaii, and there would be Australia, and then there would be Africa. Much closer than we're taught. Now, I wanted to start this out a little different. I wanted to one of the things I think we used to do is we would check in before we would talk to each other. So I just want to check in and say, Grand Day, wherever you may be at, to let yourself check in with yourself, see how you're feeling, see how you're already going with this, right? And just kind of check in and see how you're feeling. And hopefully you're feeling okay. You're doing okay. Okay. So, because the energies are pretty intense right now. But yeah, that's a planet. I can't remember which one. It's a glow in the dark planet, but it is kind of reminding me of a video I did the other night on Venus, and took my camera and zoomed in and could see the pulsing of Venus. I did share it on the channel. I hope you checked it out. The pulsing of Venus, and then the shape, and then recognizing like my own words of It's right in front of our faces. The platonic shapes. Now I get why they say that. Blew my mind. Okay, here I had a book about the Hopi Indians, and I took some pictures out of it. And here's one of them. Right there. So that's some ancestral writing. I believe that's in either Arizona or New Mexico. If it's the Hopi, it's probably Arizona. And then here's another one. This is a fairly famous, it's going to have a lot of reflection and it's kind of wrinkled. This is a fairly famous picture of the petroglyphs. It's supposed to be a rock where all the ancestors would stop and kind of, put their signature up. Really hard to see because of the reflection. But you can see some things like spaceships, different shapes, people, and a different writing. All right. I'm mentioning all this because I have some more theories, and some of which, so I watch other YouTube videos. Let me pause this real quick. I've been watching some videos on YouTube about a lot of things. I know right now we got politics going on in this country, in the US. And it was a Sky Priestess, and she's amazing. She's really helped me to look at some things in a different way. And she mentioned what's going on in the US is what's happened with Elizabeth Warren and the Cherokee Nation. So one of the things that's mentioned in there is how when people who are light-skinned or white people who did not grow up in the tradition at all claim genetic DNA linkage to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Okay. And also in that is the idea of federally recognized tribes. And I'm not sure if people know about this from my research. Because I grew up around, I lived in California. And California, this whole country is indigenous people's lands, right? So we have two indigenous peoples in California. We have what are called the Mexicans or the Latinos, and then we have the indigenous peoples of the area that are still some recognized, some not recognized. Like, for example, everybody knows about Yosemite, but a lot of people don't know about the peoples of Yosemite, nor do they know that there's a whole museum to the peoples of Yosemite, yet they are not federally recognized. And from what I've learned, there's two things that happens with federally recognized tribes or peoples. They have to take a DNA test to prove what percentage they were. I also learned that the first peoples who ever adopted were indigenous peoples, because they knew that we were all connected somehow. My dog, he wants to go for you know what. I don't say it out loud because then he gets even more excited. Go for one in a little bit, okay? Just gonna pass it down. Okay. And that there's a weird sense of division that happens, right? So because say you are part Hopi and part Blackfoot, and both are recognized federally by the government, and so you have to pick one. You have proof that you are both, yet according to the federal government you can only claim one tribe. That, I think, is not okay. Okay, then there's a few things that came to my mind. The word rattle. okay? Rattle. Babies rattle, okay? A rattle. Oh, goodness sakes. What was the other one? Rattle. Things that we all grow up with. Rattle, religion. On some level, even if it's through country, rattle. Singing, rattle, singing, dancing, and our elders, right? So this is something that you see kind of across the board, everywhere. All right. So what had my research already, anthropology. If y'all don't know what anthropology is, it's the study of man. That's what it means, the study of man. And all apologies come from geology, which is the study of the earth. And then this is science, right? This is what they say science is. Okay. He's also jealous because I'm not talking to him. You want me to talk to you, to tell the story to you? And, gosh darn it. What was I saying? Oh, okay. Oh, so I started looking at old pictures and I'm seeing the really dark skinned indigenous peoples. And I'll be honest, like I think I've said this in another video. There's something so beautiful and attractive and freeing that is shared either media-wise or directly from those who are now recognized as the indigenous of the Americas. And here's a real irony. So those of us who were told we came from Africa, we were also told to that our religion was like voodoo and a darker religion, right? Something savage, so to speak. The word savage comes from the Irish when they were describing what is called the Black Irish and their ideas about religion. So words have been like brought over and given, right? So the African has been depicted to those of us who are told we're African and to the world that we are some like spear chucking, lion hunting, N-words, dumb people. And here's a unique connection is that the ghost dance was happening when that terrible tragedy occurred. They were in ceremony, and we're also told it was illegal to practice their ways. We see a similarity here. We, the peoples that have been told we're from Africa, from the African diaspora, had to hide our religion through Catholicism. Okay, well, who brought Catholicism over? That would be the Spanish. The Spanish brought Catholicism over. It was the Spanish that we first had to hide our religion in so that we could keep practicing. And then, okay, so I look at I want to propose a story because I think that every single race comes from, like, I know plenty of people who are pale skinned or Irish and go towards the Celtic background and like Wicca and worshiping the earth. Okay. Isn't that similar to indigenous practices? They have drums, they have, the bagpipes. Isn't that a form of a flute? And if we go back even further, you can see something similar in Egypt, right? And if you really learn the history about Scotland in that area, it was supposedly populated by Akhenaten's granddaughter, Skata of Terra. Okay, and then Akhenaten is supposed to have come from the Atlantic side of the world. He has long ears. He has an elongated face. Doesn't that somewhat, and he's also known for bringing Hebrew. Doesn't he somewhat look like what we are told the indigenous people look like now? And Yahweh is in their language. You'll hear it across the board in the indigenous language, Yahweh. Okay. And then the other thing is, so what I learned from studying the Yoruba people, which is where Black Americans or the African Americans are supposed to predominantly come from, they call their deities Orishas. The indigenous people of the Americas call their deities, some of the indigenous peoples of the Americas call their deities Kachinas, Orishas, Kachinas, Orishas, Kachinas. And I find there's some sound similarity there. And if you look at the Orishas and you look at the Kachinas, there's some similarities in that their faces are covered. They're super tall. They have different energies, right? Now, okay, so this is where we go back to the mother and to the sibyls. I've been trying to figure out how did it switch? How did this big switch happen? How did we switch from mother being our religion to many religions and father becoming our creator instead of mother and father or mother? And the message I got was technology. And I think I shared this a little bit. And so if any of you haven't seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, that's kind of what I mean. And in that movie, a plane flies over and this guy throws out a Coca-Cola bottle or a Pepsi bottle or something, a glass bottle. And it lands on the guy's head that's walking. And he's an indigenous person from South Africa. And he takes it back to his tribe because it's got all these great uses and can make everything faster. And then eventually they start fighting over it, and one of the kids like hurts one of the other kids with it. And at that point, the guy who found it is like, I got to get rid of it because it's not good for the community. So, what happened with the Sibelius teachings was technology slowly came in, the slow separator between us and nature. Look at shoes. Okay, it's a slow separation between us and nature. If we look at, then we look at women's high heels. So we take something that, and women, women are wearing the high heels. Women are putting on makeup. Women are doing different things to their hair. Women are doing all this extra stuff to their bodies. Women have to cover their chests. There's plenty of pictures of ancient peoples, and there are indigenous peoples to this day that don't wear clothes. We used to be like that. And so where did it switch? It switched because simple things slowly, we volunteer. This is kind of, it's been written that we will voluntarily take on things that are called evil. Well, in my research, the original word evil or an evil person is somebody who is not for the community. It doesn't mean somebody does something wrong. It means somebody who actually goes against the community to harm the community, which would be like that Coca-Cola bottle. It doesn't have any intentions, but because it's technology and it can be voluntarily accepted as something to now, pound things faster and hold water and all these things that they used to have to use gourds and regular parts of nature for, becomes something that isn't good for the community. Because what's good for the community is for everyone to feel included, for everyone to feel loved, for everyone to never feel shame. Mother didn't dispense shame to us. We dispense shame to us. And I believe the ultimate shame, I've said this before, is that we're so separated from mother. Okay, so one of the things that flew into my mind also was, let's see, I wrote this down, mother. Oh, okay. So In order for the genocide and the voluntary information giving, it was very slow and it was voluntary. So the secrets of the Sybil were given to basically the now patriarchal system. It was voluntary. It wasn't like she was forced to give up her secrets. She gave them up voluntarily because she trusted. There was no reason to think that this person that she cared about was going to take the Sibelius secrets and then usurp it and turn it into this world of magic, really. Because I want to talk about Thanksgiving really quickly. We all know that this is a day of genocide, Thanksgiving. Most people know this. Most people know that we're celebrating a day that the indigenous peoples that were here were tricked into something and were genocided. Well, do you know that the turkey was worshipped in this country, and in some tribes still is? You'll see a lot of turkey feathers in the regalia. Well, why do you think it is that we sacrifice so many turkeys every year? Well, that's literally a burnt offering to keep us in some delusion, like we're participating in some family love thing, when we're actually participating in a form of magic. Okay. So from the mother, and their stories of the women just disappearing or genocide happening, and so as the women keep disappearing and the genocide keeps happening, men are going to have to take over. They're the ones who still remember the traditions and want to hold things together and hold the communities together. Yet we are seeing that by continuously separating us from nature, keeps us continuously separated from the feminine, even keeping the feminine separated from herself. And then the original story is that we all lived in equanimity. There was no real true worry about like paying bills and going to work. We lived in a spiritual world. We lived off the land. We knew we were provided for. There was no question. It was a type of bliss. And so over time, he's just jealous. I'm almost finished. Over time, the story of the mother was erased. So it had already been done several times, several tests, several media tests, all kinds of things had already been done to the feminine, so that we lost our memory about who we were. Then you can continue usurping the groups of people so that no one remembers who they are, and somebody is telling us who we are. Which brings me to the words that we sometimes say, great white hope. So when before the Europeans came, the Spanish were here, basically genociding a lot of the indigenous people. So the Europeans who were in power had thought that if they came over here and rescued the indigenous from the Spanish, that they would help them rebuild the country. So I do believe that this is where that energy comes from, because obviously they did get Spain out of here, but instead of rebuilding the country with the indigenous people, they just rebuilt the country, took it over, retold the stories, told a bunch of us that we're from Africa, told all of you that we're from Africa, and then all the way down to the treaties said in the beginning, if there was one drop of indigenous blood in that person, they were not to sell the land. They were not to, that land was not to be sold, or those people were not to be slaves. So, if it comes down to the possibility that somebody who is in a position of power and is pale skinned and may have one drop of indigenous blood in them, then wouldn't it be a benefit to all indigenous people, including those of us who've been told that we come from another country, that we check out this truth and really figure out what's really going on. Okay, and then I realized that reparations, if you kind of break it down, would be repair nations. That's what we need. Now, before I jump off, I only got about 5 minutes. I want to share my Reiki tools. Okay, this is one of the finger wands I did a little video on and tell you a little bit about the crystals that are in them. So this one has a real flat face, and there is kind of a window right there in it. Right. This brings the energy from your palm up to this one's an index, excuse me, this one's an index finger one. This one is a thumb one for the right hand, okay? I try to make it to where all of these touch your finger. So this one, and they're adjustable, you know, because they're made of copper. This one also has a really cool little window in there. Some garnet on it and some sunstone. Okay, and this one's made for the right hand, but if you happen to be left-handed, what you would do is you would invert the spiral, right? Bring it this way. I'm not going to do it because I'm leaving it as a right hand one. All right, right hand thumb. Here's my index finger, and then I also made one for the forefinger or ring finger. This one's really cool because it has two really unique things in this crystal. One, it has a little, you can kind of see it, a diamond shaped window is kind of indented. And then on the face of it is also a diamond shape. See that? So I actually read that that's very rare. Okay. And this, I made like a snake. Goddess snake energy. The thumb one is pretty simple. All right, this one can go on your pinky if you have long fingers, and or your forefinger, right? And then here's all of them together, right? Okay, how much more time do I have? Here's the backs of them. And let's see, I made 2 more yesterday too, so I'll take these off. These are about $20 each with free shipping. Right, I made this one. This one doesn't have the dial on it. This one's pretty rad. I call this one the Scorpion. This one has some golden colored copper. This one also has a really nice flat face. It's very, very, very clear. And then we have some amber at the bottom. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like a scorpion. Okay. And this one I already had. And I'm going to make 2 more. This one I already had. This one's pretty rad. It's got, you can see all the triangle pyramids growing out of it. And then here's like a selenite type stone. This one's got some pink, some really cool pink crystals in it. I can't remember the names of these. And this one I found where I used to live in California. So it's got, this is a piece of granite. It's got garnet in it. This is natural. Garnet and tourmaline. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So the pink can always be used for love. All right, pink love. And the selenite piece, this is, I can't remember what it's called, but it is a type of selenite. Let's see. Oh, my dog really wants to go for a walk. And we will. All right. It has some, it's got calcite in it too. So, yeah. This moon energy, some grounding energy as far as like the square that's in here. Some reflective energy as far as like EMFs, computer energy. I only got 25 seconds. And then this one has protective energy. Okay, so that's my video for today. I know I'm kind of stepping on some interesting topics, but I feel like it just needs to be talked about. All right, have a good rest of your day. See you next time.